this is video number 3 for the progressive YouTubers like Jimmy Dore and Nico House and Mikasa Sukasa, Convo Couch. Everybody who addresses a lot of these issues and the fascism and the fraud, election fraud, and the crap going on with COVID and the scamdemic. Heather J. Moore, whistleblower, DNC whistleblower, because I am technically, because the attorney I work for was also a cop and government agent and federal oversight official. That makes me a government agent. In fact, the inspector who let me know that my whistleblower claim with the SEC got Byron Brown's offices raided said, and I quote, "You're a cop, but you're a good cop who really helps people. You just spent 20 minutes trying to help me as a African-American man who clearly has alcohol on his breath, who put his hands all over you, and you were totally diplomatic. You're a good cop being killed by bad cops." So that's how I know this. Otherwise, I didn't even know they raided his office. I didn't have TV. But he did, basically what he did was he wanted to make sure I wasn't racist, I wasn't making, allegations of Title IX rape, and I wasn't hypersensitive and making false allegations, so they sent somebody to, I'm Native American, but I look white, so my mother's white, she's very racist. My father's Native American, and he's self-loathing. He wants white privilege. He wants all the white privilege that, John and Bobby Kennedy had with women. He's a misogynist and a rapist. But he kept asking me for help. He was he really tried to play the bad guy, somebody that nobody would normally help, that a racist or a man basher would help. And it didn't faze me. I thought, he asked me out to dinner. I said, I would go to dinner with you in a minute if I wasn't in so much pain. I said, I'm in so much pain, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get up. I said, I got stage 4 accelerated cancer, I'm a whistleblower, and Byron Brown wants me dead. That's when he said, oh, yeah, Byron Brown, he got his shit raided. And then and we were the only ones at the bus stop, so he went into detail about who the prosecutors were that hired him and several other investigators and looked into my claims. They had to find 2 prosecutors that were not corrupt to actually get the warrant and file for it. And I'm not going to go into all that for their safety, but that's just so you probably wondering, well, they're not mentioning you in the paper. No, it's a sealed whistleblower indictment. They're murdering people. The Clinton body count is very, very real. I am a child sex trafficking victim. My mother's sister was an RN whose husband was all part of the Mizzou Good Old Boys Club, and their family is from northern Arkansas. Now, I was a teenager when Bill Clinton was the governor and attorney general of Arkansas, who was flying in the dope through Mena, Arkansas, and him and Roger Clinton created a narco state. That's undisputed. They turned Missouri, and they had political allies in Missouri, including Senator Jay Nixon, who eventually became Attorney General and then eventually governor during Ferguson, who hired the Health Net director, where I was a patient at his clinics at Mizzou and Family Health Center Boone County. One of the nurse practitioners got recorded coming on to me, and that really is why they got so nasty with me, and a doctor got recorded raping me to teach me a lesson about recording them rapist good old boys committing fraud and maintaining segregation. So my aunt was actually friends with her, and my aunt and her husband had a big property, and they would have all their Mizzou, old boys and frat boys out there. They were involved in lynchings, child sex trafficking, drug trafficking, and they ran back and forth from Arkansas. In fact, my uncle, my mom's brother, Roger Chapman, was convicted of drug trafficking. He had dilaudid. He kept quiet about the doctors he got that dilaudid from my aunt. And why would your aunt let you get molested? Because I'm a mongrel child. miscegenation was against the law in Missouri, and yeah, an attorney general supposedly overturned it, but the NAACP has a national travel advisory against the state because of the way Ferguson and how they act towards gays and how they rape women and all their human rights violations. It's the only state in the union that made voters do not travel. It's the only place in America that made voters do not travel list, and I think it was 2018 or 19. It was a big deal because Governor Greeton signed that Bill 43, something like that. It was Bill 43 or 46 that allowed discrimination in the workplace. So they're going backwards, and that's no secret. The Sasha Minu Curry murder. I mean, watch the ESPN. In fact, I'll send you all a link to the ESPN Outside the Lines documentary where they confessed to illegally kicking her off the swim team. When under Missouri's Chapter 334, you falsify athletic records, it's the same as falsifying. Athletic records and medical records are considered basically the same in Missouri. And they confessed to falsifying her athletic records, and we know they falsified her medical records, calling her psycho to justify not investigating the rape of the 3 football players. They destroyed her academic career, forced her to sign over, locked her up on a psych ward, didn't give her her appointed attorney, and I got myself, I had recording devices on me and let them admit me to the same psych ward so I could record what really happens up there. You never get to see your court-appointed attorney. And they locked her up on that psych ward involuntarily, and ESPN's like, well, do you really think that's the time to have her sign a legal document signing away her academic scholarship? Well, she wasn't capable of making her own decisions. He's the ESPN interviewer's like, exactly the point. So that signature on that document's invalid. It was signed under duress. She wasn't appointed her proper legal advisor, who certainly would have not let them do that. But all of the lawyers are part of the fraud. It's all just kabuki theater to get their federal grants and keep themselves open, basically. And the Mo Health Net director was Dr. Joseph Parks, who was a University of Missouri psychiatric professor. He now has a national appointment. And Centene Corporation and United that handle all the Medicaid marketplace plans, because they're government contracted, they're cops. Everybody who works for them is a cop. That means the doctors are cops. Now, if I want to expand on my theory that cops are doctors. If you get hit by a drunk driver tomorrow, the prosecutor's automatically going to send for all your previous medical records to see if you had any pre-existing conditions. Let's say you got back pain. No pre-existing conditions of chronic back pain. Okay, that's a new charge for that drunk driver. Let's say the drunk driver does some real damage, breaks ribs, and you got a punctured lung and internal hemorrhaging, and you need to have surgery. That prosecutor and those cops use the doctors to determine how much harm that drunk driver did, so they know how to charge him. And if the motherfucker left the scene, that's maybe attempted manslaughter. So that's in cops work. Doctors work with cops all day long on domestic violence cases, child abuse cases. This is just standard procedure. Plus, if let's say you go in to rob a liquor store, prosecutor's still going to send for your medical records to make sure you are of perfect mental health, so he can establish mens rea. Because you can't make a prima facie case without criminal intent. You got to have criminal intent on top of the criminal act to make a prima facie case. So that's why I'm now seeing why everybody wanted me to contact you too. And it's because my recording capabilities is so limited, I can't really go into all this, but I did want to, because I'm Asperger's and I pull up so much information all at once that I do sidetrack my own statements. I had mentioned Michael Brown Sr. and Anthony Gray, their attorney. After I'd sent them all this stuff, I saw an article where Ferguson PD had been demanding I don't remember, I think one article said the whole family's medical records. Another article indicated that they just wanted Michael Brown's medical records. And they're like, why do you want our son's medical? Why do you want any medical records? Everybody saw the video of you shooting our son. You were tried for murder. Because what it does is Ferguson PD wouldn't have gotten a judge to force them to turn over those medical records unless they knew there was something in those records that was going to help their case. which was to demonize Michael Brown and make him look less human, to make Darren Wilson look more justified in shooting their son. Their settlement went from almost $5 million to down to $1.3 million, and they probably wouldn't have even got that if it hadn't been for the protests. So the Sasha Minu Curry case, the email that I CC'd to the NAACP, Chad, the lawyer I worked for, and 50 other people at Mizzou, was written to Lynn Curry. And I said, I gave an example. I said, if the Mizzou football players were to go on strike, like they threatened to do on Arizona Governor Jan Brewer during the 2014 Super Bowl, I said it would devastate this entire local economy. So what they did was they did the research. The coach was making $4 million a year. They waited until a bowl game was coming up that Mizzou was supposed to play at Chiefs Stadium, and set up this whole big thing where there was a hunger strike. And then the football players locked arms and threatened not to get on the field during a bowl game that would have cost Mizzou $1 million alone, and said that if the system's president and the chancellor, Lofton Bowen, or Bowen Lofton, however the hell his name's pronounced, it's hyphenated, doesn't resign, they won't play the bowl game. And sure enough, the fans said, you're either going to resign or get killed, but they're getting on that football field. See, Missouri doesn't have much industry. All they have is sports. They make over $1 billion a year just off, the ticket sales and the merchandise. That doesn't include all the businesses that make money. So when they lost 35% drop in enrollment and got all those NCAA charges and couldn't recruit the top football players anymore because of me sending all that to the NAACP and Black Lives Matter and Chad, who basically tried to pawn it off as his own idea to make it look like he was this brilliant civil rights strategist. Same thing he was doing to me in Florida. Basically, they had to close 7 dorms, fire over 500 Mizzou faculty, which is employees, force over 200 more into retirement, close 128 programs, and the businesses lost 35% of their business because that's students that